This is the reading guide for Wednesday, November 12th. The reading guide for Wednesday, November 12th. I went ahead and made a list of the issues with stable isotope analysis and the possible resolutions from the paper that we read for Monday. So I went ahead and numbered it and made a little bit of a description here, and I put that up on Moodle. I want you to use this as you read the paper for Wednesday. So here's the paper, Stable Isotopes in Mammalian Research, a Beginner's Guide. As you go through here, I want you to be marking down in the margins or in your notes where you find references to each of the items that are in that document. So do they talk about lipids, and then within that, do they talk about lipid extraction? Do they talk about different types of tissues and whether or not they need extraction? And so on. And I want you to go through and then have an idea of how many of these different issues are addressed. Are there ones that are not addressed? And then also be making notes on any issues that were not brought up in this paper, in the Bond and Jones paper, that our current Ben David and Flaherty paper mention. So you will come away with a list of which ones of these were mentioned, and then anything new that this paper contributes. Okay, so this is an article in the Journal of Mammalogy from 2012. This is a review article again. In this article, they give you a good review of what are stable isotopes. From your quizzes, I suggest that you do go ahead and read this part of the paper. What are stable isotopes? Go through, and this is a great explanation of how you measure the ratios of stable isotopes. So please read this as well. There's an excellent analogy in here of, let's see if I can find it, of how molecules are separated when they are when they're put through the process of analyzing for stable isotopes. So please take a look at that for how the mass spec works. Okay, then we're going to get into a little more, and the idea with this paper, even though it reviews some of the stuff you already know, is that it takes it a little bit deeper. So you do need to read this to remind yourself and also to give yourself a deeper understanding of stable isotopes. At the end of the unit, of course, you want to be really much more familiar with stable isotopes, and that level of understanding is what will be on the final exam. Okay, always pay attention to what's in the tables, so take a look at that. Obviously look at this figure as well. Okay, I always make a note on the side of the page about what each of those tables is telling you, so make sure you do the same thing here. And this could be referring to one of the potential pitfalls from our Word document, so take a look at this and see if that is referring to one of those and which one it might be. Down here they start to talk about fractionation, okay? Just a little bit here, and then on the next page they really get into fractionation. Many of you had issues with that on the quiz, so please read this very carefully. Make sure you know what fractionation is, because then they're going to go into a discussion of fractionation and how physical and biological processes lead to fractionation. So you should come away from this paper really understanding fractionation. I wanted you to have a beginner's understanding of it for our last class, and now I expect you'll have a more deeper understanding of it. I want to point out that right in here, in this section on fractionation, they're going to talk about the difference between fractionation and discrimination. Make sure that is clear to you. That's a fantastic quiz question or exam question. Okay, in this next section, they talk about three main physical mechanisms that cause fractionation. You know I love lists, so pay attention to that. Over here we have the relationship, somewhere in here, the relationship between the available, what's available, and the amount of discrimination. This is a really nice section. So relationship between the availability of a substrate or a food item, for instance, and then the amount of discrimination that occurs when that resource is used. I have another note here to myself. How did isotope analysis lead to the understanding of C4 expansion 6 million years ago? That's something that's addressed down here. That would make another excellent exam question. So basically, this whole leading up section here is, for the most part, giving you a deeper understanding of stable isotopes and their use, and this is the kind of stuff that I'm thinking about for the exam. In here, we have a whole section of what affects isotopic signatures for primary producers and their food webs. They talk about photosynthetic pathways and soil moisture and temperature and water source and rooting depth. I would make a list of that for myself. That's definitely something that we will use over and over again. And then I want you to think about, as they go into the next sections where they talk about the differences in terrestrial versus aquatic systems. So how are the isotopic signatures and the ways that they're affected the same or different in terrestrial and then aquatic, both marine and freshwater? Okay, we're going to get over to, and this is another situation where you want to take a look at this figure and see if this is supporting any of the issues that we suggested you pay attention to. Problems, pitfalls, and solutions, right? So what do these figures present to you? Okay, now this figure is, I have in my notes, this is overwhelming, right? So you need to take a quick look at this and then really get into it. Why are some of these things underlined? Why are some of these in rectangles? Why are they in circles? What is this row of words at the top? How are those different from things that are in circles? What do the arrows mean and the direction of the arrows and so on? In particular, I want you to pay attention to, what are the potential effects of isotopes and the pitfalls and solutions that this figure is showing you. Okay, basically, starting with this section down here, how do we quantify nutrient flows? This is where I start getting a whole lot of notes to myself about the pitfalls from my numbered list. So I've got a whole bunch of those listed throughout here. So you're going to want to pay attention to that all the way through this, and those figures as well are important. Keep going through here, same thing. This is where they really get into these issues that you need to pay attention to. They are very encouraging, right? They do talk about the benefits of using stable isotope analysis, even while they are telling you that there are issues, which is great because the previous article was not quite as rosy as this one, so appreciate the optimism in this one, right? As you keep going, I've got a few more notes to say here. Let's see, 321. So actually on this page here, they start getting into the idea of deuterium and oxygen, and they have a whole list of caveats and special considerations. See if those were on our previous list, and if not, add them to your list. Okay, now we get into something your other paper didn't talk much about. You will remember that there is such a thing as labeled or artificially enriched stable isotopes. So we didn't talk about how you can use them, but this paper explains how you can use them and how those you can use them to leverage your results and to be able to make broader statements or more detailed or more specific statements when you're studying diet analysis. So really, really interesting stuff, and this is something that we can talk about as a group because it's a little bit new to us. Then we get, okay, so here's where they talk about combining these, right? Once you know what they are, then they want to talk about how you combine that with a more traditional isotopic study. And then finally, over here, they give you this section on how innovation could change the future of isotopic analyses. So what are and I have, let's see, there are four main things in this section. Up here we have a little bit of what are the things that will make isotope analysis easier, cost less. So make a note of those, and then down here I also have discussion about compound-specific analysis and what that can do for diet analysis. Pretty exciting stuff that's coming, and some of this is already here, so great news for stable isotope studies. So I think you guys have a good idea of what you're doing. You need to come in with your notes and your list so you know which of the, here we go, which of these issues are addressed and what are the issues that are not addressed. So you'll be ready to go and help your team out with your team activity. Okay, looking forward to seeing you in class.